I think my wife is cheating on me. Tonight I'll find out for certain. My wife hadn't been herself for a while now. The differences were small. She'd been smiling a little more, dressing a little differently. Someone who didn't know her well might not have noticed any change at all. But I'd noticed. And as much as I wanted to believe there was a harmless explanation, deep down I knew the truth. There was someone else. So I followed her. This morning she drove to her gym, as usual. I'd always admired how hard she worked to stay in shape, and I certainly couldn't argue with the results. Afterward she drove to the mall. I followed behind, surreptitiously. She walked up the concourse, eventually entering a Victoria's Secret. I waited outside, staring into store windows to remain inconspicuous. Eventually she emerged carrying 2 bags. I'm no fool. I knew what women buy in stores like that. She'd never worn anything like that for me. I'd never thought of her as that kind of woman. Clearly she'd bought it for him. After Turward I followed her across town until she pulled into the parking lot of an upscale hotel. How could she afford this? He must have paid for it. I knew what they were doing, but I needed to see it with my own eyes. Entering the hotel, I booked a room and told the front desk attendant I had a good friend celebrating a special occasion upstairs and wanted to send her a bottle of champagne. The attendant helpfully agreed. I followed the delivery person into the elevator and hung back as he exited, went to her door, and knocked. I caught a glimpse as the elevator doors closed. It was her. Circling back, I went to the door and knocked. Likely thinking I was room service again, she answered. As she stood there wearing only a robe, I saw red. I pushed the door in, sending her flying. Hearing the noise, he came out from the bedroom. Furious and betrayed, I glared down at her with disgust. How could you do this to me? To us, he had the nerve to try to speak to me, but I wasn't interested in his lies. I picked up a knife from the room service tray and plunged the blade into his stomach as he stared at me in shock. Then I pulled it back and thrust forward 3 more times until he fell to the ground. My rage clearing, I turned and reached out to Amanda, ready to accept her apology and put this behind us. But instead, she screamed. Reaching out to quiet her, I accidentally stabbed her with the knife. She fell and I watched the light fade from her eyes. Again. Damn it. This was the 7th time I'd found her. She kept changing her appearance. It was beyond frustrating. But I knew that eventually I'd convince her to come home and we'd be together forever. No matter how many times I had to kill her,